is a real-life story that's a matter of life and death, and it really was an extraordinary coincidence.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be looking at the most notable instances where elements of pop culture affected either the motives for a true crime or influenced the outcome and aftermath of a case.
What the hell did I do? Kill them all, of course.
Murder of John Brian Altinger. The Showtime series Dexter follows a forensic technician who, by night, becomes a vigilante serial killer, targeting murderers who have somehow evaded justice.
Why couldn't I? Please, you have to understand.
Trust me, I definitely understand. See, I can't help myself either.
The show gained immense popularity and seemingly inspired several real-life killers, most notably Mark Twitchell. In 2008, Twitchell, a Canadian filmmaker, pretended to be a woman on dating sites and lured men to a rented garage in Edmonton, Alberta.
Mark loved the sense of power and control that he had over his victim.
One of those men was John Brian Altinger, whom Twitchell fatally stabbed. During his trial, prosecutors presented Twitchell's writings, which revealed his obsession with the show's protagonist, Dexter Morgan. Due to this connection, he was referred to in the media as the Dexter Killer.
It was a story that fascinated people. It's as big a case as Edmonton has ever seen.
Twitchell was ultimately convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. The Crimes of Richard Ramirez. In the mid-80s, Richard Ramirez terrorized Los Angeles and San Francisco, breaking into homes, typically at night, and murdering the occupants. This method earned him the moniker the Night Stalker.
The Night Stalker killed at least 13 times, 13 people who were awakened in the night to face death. At least 15 others survived his brutal attacks.
Ramirez harbored a deep fascination with Satanism and the occult, which contributed to the widespread satanic panic of the 80s. He was an avid fan of heavy metal music, particularly bands with satanic themes, like AC/DC. Among their songs, Night Prowler was reportedly his favorite.
Yes, I'm the Night Prowler when you turn out the light.
Ramirez was supposedly spotted wearing the band's merch and even dropped an AC/DC hat at a crime scene. This association brought negative publicity to the band, but Ramirez apparently made no effort to dispel the connection between AC/DC's songs and his actions.
Doesn't it frustrate you that your lyrics have engendered all this controversy when you find they have perfectly innocent meanings?
In a way, you get a bit insulted.
Murder of Robert W. Wood. On November 28, 1976, Dallas police officer Robert W. Wood was fatally shot after pulling over a car which had been stolen by an individual named David Harris. When questioned by authorities, Harris falsely accused Randall Adams, a man he had given a ride to the previous day, of the murder. Adams was subsequently convicted and sentenced to death, though this was later commuted to life imprisonment.
I looked at all the evidence, and I believe that David Harris committed murder. The jury looked at the same evidence and found they believed that Randall Adams committed murder, and it was their verdict that counted.
The 1988 documentary film, The Thin Blue Line, shed light on multiple inconsistencies and falsehoods in the prosecution's case. Notably, it secured an admission from Harris of Adams's innocence.
Is he innocent? Did you ask you? Well, he's always said he's been innocent. There you go.
Due to the film's publicity, Adams's conviction was overturned, and he was released from prison after prosecutors declined to retry the case. Murder of John Lennon. On December 8, 1980, Beatles singer and songwriter John Lennon was murdered just outside his New York City residence.
John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival.
The perpetrator was Mark David Chapman, who had initially been Lennon's fan. However, Chapman's admiration for the singer soured over time, stemming from his controversial statement about the Beatles being more popular than Jesus, and what he perceived as Lennon's hypocrisy.
He said, "Is that all? Do you want anything else?" And I felt then and now that he knew something subconsciously, that he was looking into the eyes of the person that was going to kill him.
When police arrived at the scene, they found Chapman casually reading The Catcher in the Rye. Chapman had been heavily inspired by the novel's protagonist, Holden Caulfield, who had a strong dislike for phonies and adult hypocrisy, traits he attributed to Lennon.
I was probably angered at his phoniness. I mean, I wasn't fuming, but I was saying what a fake he was, what a phony he was. Then I thought to myself that I was going to kill John Lennon.
Chapman ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and received a sentence of 20 years to life. Murder of Marisol Gonzalez. On March 25, 1997, Marisol Gonzalez, a pregnant lady, was shot and killed near her Cottonwood, Arizona home on the same day she was scheduled to deliver.
Because the Cottonwood police have one main suspect, but they've never been able to find enough evidence to bring charges.
Sadly, her unborn full-term baby also died. Suspicion quickly fell on Cecilio Cruz, Gonzalez's boyfriend and the baby's father. But with little evidence, authorities couldn't link him to the murder. More than a decade later, Cottonwood police enlisted the help of the true crime series Cold Justice.
We brought in homicide investigators Alan Brown and Armando Perez to help with this case, which is really good because we have almost 90 people that we need to find and talk to.
The show's investigators combed through the evidence and interviewed several witnesses. Based on new findings, Cruz was charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter.
Cottonwood police investigators credit a national television program called Cold Justice for helping them solve the case. The segment aired 7 months ago.
However, the jury failed to reach a unanimous verdict, resulting in the charges being dismissed without prejudice, which allows for possible refiling in the future. Watergate. The Watergate scandal involved the break-in of the Democratic National Committee headquarters by individuals associated with Richard Nixon's 1972 re-election campaign.
We have a mystery story out of Washington. 5 people have been arrested and charged with breaking into the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee in the middle of the night.
Journalists Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward played a pivotal role in exposing the true scale of the scandal through articles in the Washington Post and their best-selling book, All the President's Men.
You were either writing history or you were writing your own professional obituaries.
Exactly. And we were confident in the method and the sources, but not absolutely sure.
Their meticulous reporting exposed the involvement of high-ranking officials in the Nixon administration and traced the entire scheme to the president himself. These revelations were documented in All the President's Men, which was later adapted into an Oscar-nominated film.
Forget the myths the media has created about the White House. The truth is, these are not very bright guys, and things got out of hand.
About 2 months after the book's release, Nixon, now facing almost certain impeachment, resigned from office, becoming the first U.S. president to do so. The Manson family murders. When the Beatles recorded their 1968 White Album, little did they know that it would set off a chain of tragic events. After listening to the album, cult leader Charles Manson interpreted the lyrics, particularly on the track Helter Skelter, as a call to incite a race war.
Helter Skelter came out of one of the Beatles songs, the words, but what it came to mean to Manson and what he was preaching, so to speak, to his followers was a race war.
He then manipulated his followers into committing a series of crimes to bring about the chaos he envisioned. Between August 9th and 10th of 1969, members of the Manson family murdered actress Sharon Tate and 6 others in Los Angeles.
Over 2 nights in August 1969, actress Sharon Tate and 6 others
had been slain in one of the century's most infamous crimes.
During his trial, Manson's fixation with helter-skelter and his imagined scenario served as compelling evidence to convict him. He was initially sentenced to death, though this was later commuted to life in prison. Murder of Martha Puebla. What are the odds that a TV show about the fictionalized life of a comedian could prevent a man from landing on death row?
That's 2 tickets.
I'm meeting a friend there, actually.
No, I'm going to go to the game, or you're going to take me back to the corner, or I'm going to call my...
Slim, but as it turns out, definitely possible. In May 2003, Martha Puebla was killed shortly after testifying in a murder case. Days later, a man named Juan Catalan, whose brother was a suspect in the case, was arrested for her murder.
I open the door out of instinct, and I step out, and, right away, he's got the gun right on me. And I thought I was dead.
10 undercover police officers had come from nowhere.
However, Catalan insisted he was innocent, as he was watching a baseball game at Dodger Stadium at the time of the murder. Fortunately, an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm was being filmed on that day, and cameras captured Catalan in the stadium. This crucial footage ultimately contributed to the charges against him being dismissed.
After dancing with death, Juan was a free man.
From getting the tickets on the day of to being caught on camera, well, what are the chances that out of 58,000 seats, they're filming on my aisle?
Murder of Susan Berman. Robert Durst, the man at the center of HBO's docuseries The Jinx, was a mystifying figure.
Does it make sense to you that there were people that suspected you of having...
Oh, sure. I mean, because she was my spokesman. All of a sudden, she's dead right after Janine Pirro's doing the investigation of me.
An heir to a real estate fortune, Durst was linked to the disappearance of his wife, Kathleen McCormack, as well as the murders of his friend Susan Berman and neighbor Morris Black. The show unearthed new evidence in Berman's case, including an incriminating letter shown to have been penned by Durst. Just one day before the finale aired, Durst was arrested and charged with first-degree murder for Berman's death.
Last weekend, as the Jinx crescendoed to its grand finale, a new chapter begins. New Orleans police arrest Durst on a warrant issued in Los Angeles for the murder of Susan Berman.
He was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Durst was set to stand trial for McCormack's disappearance, but he died of cardiac arrest before proceedings could commence.
At the end of his life, Robert Durst was in failing health and serving a life without parole sentence for murder, having plenty of time to perhaps wonder how he got away with it all for so long.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. The 1976 film Taxi Driver follows Travis Bickle, a troubled cabbie who plots to assassinate a presidential candidate and tries to help a sex worker, played by Jodie Foster.
What's your name?
Easy.
Well, that's not any kind of name.
Oh, that's easy to remember.
Yeah, but what's your real name?
I don't like my real name.
John Hinckley Jr. became obsessed with Foster and tried unsuccessfully to gain her attention. Hinckley developed a distorted belief that assassinating a public figure, like Bickle attempted to do in the film, would finally get Foster to notice him.
Without getting specific, was he threatening, amorous? What was he like?
I'm not allowed to say. I believe that it's, that the letters were assumed to have been, love type letters.
On March 30th, 1981, fueled by his delusions, Hinckley fired 6 shots at President Ronald Reagan outside the Washington Hilton Hotel. Reagan was seriously injured, but he survived the attack. Hinckley was ultimately found not guilty of the crime by reason of insanity and was confined to a psychiatric hospital for over 3 decades.
Well, for the Reagan family, for the Brady family, for the families of the other 2 victims, for Jodie Foster, I apologize for what I've done, for what I did 41 years ago.
In what other ways has pop culture played a significant role in real-life crimes? Let us know in the comments.
Oh, yeah, hey, man, I'm looking for Terry. I'm a friend of Terry's and Dennis Wilson's.
Well, Terry and Candy don't live here anymore. This is the Polanski residence now.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.